Hey guys, today we are going to talk about graphing quadratic inequalities. The good thing is if you've been keeping up on graphing quadratics, this lesson will not be anything new. Okay, so let's refresh our forms. We have vertex form, which is a times x minus h squared plus k. From that, we found our vertex at the coordinate opposite h, comma k. Then we learned standard form. From here, we also found the vertex, but we had to use a little formula, negative b over 2a. That gave us our x value. Then to get our y value, we took what we found for x and we plugged it in to the equation to find y. And then finally, we will learn intercept form. And we called it intercept form because it tells us the two x-intercepts. Those intercepts are at the opposite of p, comma 0 and the opposite of q, comma 0. So we're going to be using any of those three forms again today. But on top of that, we're not going to be just graphing equations, we're going to graph inequalities. So we have to remember something about inequalities. For inequalities, we had to decide what type of line. Did we do a dotted or a solid line? And we had to shade. So dotted line was when we had less than or greater than. Solid was when we had less than equal to or greater than equal to. And then as far as shading, when we had less than or less than equal to, we would shade below. Greater than equal to, we would shade above. All right, so standard form, ABC. I have to find my vertex because I'm graphing. So in order to find my vertex, I first have to figure out what x is. That's where we used a little baby formula, negative b over 2a. So that would be the negative 6 over 2 times 1, which is negative 6 over 2, which is negative 3. Once I know my x value of my vertex, I can use that to find my y. I take every x and I replace it with what I found x to be. And then you could do one of two things. You can either work this out in your head, on a calculator, writing it out, however you so choose. I get negative 7. So I found my vertex, negative 3, negative 7. So I'm going to go to my grid, my axes, and I'm going to plot my vertex. -3, -7. And I'm going to draw my axis of symmetry still. I'm still graphing a quadratic. Even though it's an inequality, I'm still graphing a quadratic. Okay, from here, I can get an additional point one of two ways. Most of us just said, okay, if I'm here at -3, I can plug in -2 for x. That works. So I would have -2 squared plus 6 times -2 plus 2. And I get -6. So -2, -6 could be an additional point. I reflect that over my axis of symmetry. Now I have to decide how I need to connect my lines, or my dots. So this is where I'm going to go look at my inequality. It's strictly less than, so that means I'm going to be doing a dotted line. And less than means I'm going to shade below. So dotted line, shade below. Okay. Parentheses squared means I have vertex form, which is my AHK. So I get vertex from doing the opposite of H, comma K. Oops, helps if I write the number instead of the letter, comma K. So again, I'm going to go to my coordinate axes. Move them because I didn't draw them. Didn't draw them big enough, sorry. Okay, so I plot my vertex, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I draw my line of symmetry. And now to find an additional point, I'm just going to pick something to the right of my vertex. So I'm going to pick 2. I'm going to plug that into my equation. I'm going to solve for y. Now, granted, I know I worked all that out and I didn't talk, but you can do one of two things. You can work through the problem like I did by hand, but I've also told you all you can use your calculator. So I got the coordinate 2, 7. My line of symmetry is nice because then I can just reflect over my line. But now I got to decide what kind of a curve am I going to draw, solid or dotted? I have equal to, so I'm going to do solid. And this is greater than, so that means I'm going to shade above. So solid curve. Shading above is going to end up being on the inside of my parabola. Okay, and finally, 2 parentheses means I'm going to get 2 intercepts, so this must be APQ, because my x-intercepts are at the opposite of P, 0, and the opposite of Q, 0. So I plot my x-intercepts first, -1, 0, 3, 0, and then I'm going to draw my axis of symmetry right in the middle of them. So that's going to end up happening right here. That is exactly in the middle of those 2 x-intercepts. So that means the value I'm going to plug in for x is 1, the value that my line of symmetry went through. I'm going to plug that into my formula. Everywhere I see an X, I'm going to replace it with 1. And then yes, I can either use my calculator or I can do this by hand. Okay, I got an answer of 2, so that means I'm going to go to the coordinate 1, 2. And I'm going to plot my vertex. And then I'm going to decide what kind of a line. Solid because I see the equal to, and it's a less than, so